things in life for free, but you can give them to the birds and bees. I want money.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Anson and Paul's Big Movie Podcast. I'm Anson Chan.
And I'm Paul Morgan.
And today we are reviewing Zodiac.
And Lord of War.
Yeah, Paul, what do you want to start with today?
I would like to start with Lord of War.
Hell yeah, you want to take it away?
Let's do it. So, Lord of War is about a dude named Yuri Orlov, which, if I recall correctly, is some form of a pseudonym, who comes to the United States with his Ukrainian parents and becomes an arms dealer through circumstances that we are never fully privy to, though we understand the inciting incident is him seeing some mobsters kill a dude.
Yes.
And it's kind of about the ups and downs of the clandestine arms trade throughout the world in places that are underserved by typical arms dealers. Is that accurate enough?
I think so. I think that's giving you a little bit too much credit, but yeah. That's what it's going
Possibly,
for.
very possibly.
Yeah.
So, Anson, what worked in this movie for you? Where did this hit the mark? With the gun that Nicolas Cage sells.
Bang. Got it.
Bang.
I liked the opening montage quite a bit. It was a really...
Oh, the manufacturing plant?
Yeah, it was really creative. The CGI was fucking horrible, but the concept was really cool.
Yeah, the concept was on point.
Yeah, or like, it takes you through like a bullet's life, where like it is being manufactured in like an old factory, being punched and like filled with gunpowder and stuff, going into like a box, out into like a shipping container that ends up in the USSR, gets opened by like a Russian, then it's closed and it's opened by like an African like many years later, right? And then like eventually fired and like goes into the brain of a kid. It's like, that was really, really cool.
Yeah,
like,
good concept. Let's see someone with some real CGI talent pull that off.
That was a really good short. That could have been like a nice 2-minute vignette kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, certainly. A little Vimeo feature.
Yeah, exactly. Get a couple of internet awards, you know, make their day.
Yep.
I also really like...
Webby.
Hell yeah. All of the Webbies. Oh man, I just thought about something. You could do that. Anyway, there's a thing on Team Fortress where you can make your own videos, and like they have the Saxy Awards. I bet you could do that on Team Fortress, and then you could probably get a Saxy. Maybe. I don't know. Those are pretty good. Anyway, I also liked the performance of the African Lord of War, the Liberian prince or dictator, whatever his fucking name is.
Oh, the guy he meets like midway through the movie?
Yes.
With the cowboy gals?
No, not the son. That was Andre Baptiste. Oh, no, it was Andre Baptiste Sr. Andre Baptiste Jr. was the one with the cowgirls. But yeah, his regime did field the cowgirls.
Cool.
I liked his performance a lot, played by Eamon Walker, apparently. I told you I'm like a huge sucker for cool accents. Yep. So I really liked his like cool African accent and deep African voice. Really cool. I'm like infatuated with things like USSR related, or I always found that fascinating. Like, I guess I'm a sucker for the heels in a lot of things, the shit heels, if you will, in wrestling.
Sure.
So the USSR being the ultimate bad guy, I was always kind of fascinated with like the whole, you can't even like talk about it. You can't even like, you know, be associated with them. They're so bad. I'm like, who are these guys? Who are these guys? And so I just kind of liked that mystique almost that they had. So I kind of like the Maoist kind of like, who are these guys? Who are these guys? Kind of thing too. So whenever these kind of movies take place in like, not like a James Bondy USSR where they're all supervillains, but like just like regular USSR, I always find that a little bit intriguing for me, just like on a deep level of like, oh, you know, that part of me never truly died. I mean, it's totally rationalized now of like, it was like it's a phase because he didn't know anything about it, and you know, you can kind of see kind of the faults in their design and mantra, if you will, as you can see with like many things. I've taken more of an objective stance with a lot of things, but there still is that childhood curiosity, I think, that is inhabited within me. So I like seeing the Ukraine post collapse. There's another scene in that in like Zodiac. Just like one moment where the cartoon is like has a picture of like Richard Nixon. I'm like, oh Nixon. Oh,
Yeah, right.
those wonderful times, I also, in this movie particularly, I liked a lot of ideas, and that sounds like such a cop-out, but I like the idea of Nicolas Cage's Ukrainian parents, like the dad being like a fake Jew, but like actually becoming very enamored with his fake identity as a Jew, and kind of like
I
immersing
love
himself in it. But they don't
And they only
explore
briefly
it.
touch on that.
Yeah, like as a cool aside, it was cool. So I liked the idea. I kind of wish there was more of it. I like the idea of how Nicolas Cage kind of meets his wife, but
Oh, the private island thing.
yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. Or he rents the whole like hotel on the island.
The whole resort thingy.
Yeah, and like how he has to like his fake private jet where he just like paints his name on the private jet to make her think it's his.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the loyal wife to a point. Not really. I mean, like, it really wasn't done well, but I think conceptually I like where that could have gone. Man, see,
Yeah.
this is like a backhanded way of saying all the things I didn't like, but because seriously trying to recall, I did like these ideas, because I'm like, yeah, that was kind of cool, but oh wait, never mind. Because then I have to remember it didn't do shit with it. I like the scene where the little girl asks Nicolas Cage, the little African girl, who's like, let's ask this white man, Mister, will my arm grow back? And I was like, oh. Like, that was like one of the very few times they actually touch on an emotional level the impact that the gun running is having on these African nations, or just really the day-to-day life of these like conflict-riddled African countries or states. So I thought that was a really good instant emotional gratification, if you will. That
Yes.
Yeah, from the movie that really stood out because most of it really faltered.
Yeah.
I like the scene where you see the airplane get disassembled in a speed-up thing where you see Nicolas Cage just sitting there on the side of the road.
Oh, and all those dudes come and like scrap it or whatever.
That was a really cool effect. I'm not sure how they got the... I bet they just had Nicolas Cage sit in front of a green screen, got similar lighting, and then just like looped a feed of Nicolas Cage. Well, maybe they actually did that in real life. But
Yeah,
I think
I
that
don't
was
know. I know that's a pretty popular technique in a lot of movies, but I don't know what the execution's like.
Yeah, but that was a cool time lapse. That's the word I'm looking for, time lapse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Very, very gorgeous.
this movie had a couple choice lines. For instance, okay, well, suffice it to say, there are some choice lines in this movie amidst its just ocean of trying way too hard to make every single one of those lines stick.
Yeah.
And I think that just about does it. Yeah, I can't really say anything like story-wise really, really got me. I can't say anything visually really stood out to me. Can't see any of the acting stood out to me. Yeah, I think I'm just going to go with that. That's a short list. Paul,
Sure.
what worked for you in The Lord of War?
I like these kind of small little reminders of the negative impact of his trade, I guess. One of the big ones, and I would not have thought this was impactful had the person I was watching it with not gasped and said, "Oh my fucking God." But
What?
the opening scene where that entire gorgeous, if, kind of clunky CGI bullet goes through the whole manufacturing process, goes through a bunch of different inspections, and then goes right into that kid's head. I was watching it with someone and they were like, "Oh my God." Like, and
Was
they
it your
just
mom?
left. It was my sister, but
Okay.
still. They saw that and they just left, and I was like, that's the fucking point. Yeah, I like that. And then same with the Mr. Will My Arm Grow Back, stuff like that. Little reminders of how negatively he's affecting the world. I didn't think anything that I perceived the movie to be going for was particularly effective besides that.
Yeah.
I know that they tried to show a strained relationship between Nicolas Cage and Jared Leto. And that came off as try-hardy. I don't know that
Oh, man.
they sold it well enough for me. I think a cocaine issue is a very kind of movie cop-out for like, oh, this guy doesn't have control over his life. I know that they tried to show Nicolas Cage's moral quandary being a part of the gun trade by, showing kids getting executed in the Middle East in the first few scenes, and then get it, when the African guy kills one of his associates right in front of Nicolas Cage and he kind of freaks out. They try to show him being a moral, upstanding guy, but it doesn't really play because in some scenes he's that way, and in other scenes he's this cartoonishly masculine, fuck anything that moves, wave my gun around because it's my dick kind of guy.
Nicolas Cage or Jared Leto?
Nicolas Cage. Like, there's the scenes where he is trying to be morally upstanding about the fact that people are dying all around him.
Wait a second.
Those are contrasted.
When you say morally upstanding, do you mean
like
the
he's
fact
morally
that
outraged by the fact that people are being killed if it happens in front of him. When he's
What?
not in the same room, it's like a big,
it doesn't
who gives
happen,
a
it
shit?
goes away. But
Yeah. But what I'm trying to contrast that with is that moral outrage is on one side, his good side, and then on the other side, he has this like fake spy, pseudo suave persona that when this lady asks him if he sells guns, he goes, maybe if you come up to my room, I can show you my cannon. Pew, pew. Like, those two personality facets don't really play as good complements to each other. And granted, I know human beings are complex creatures, but like when he's sitting in the chair and the African guy blows the other guy away and he gets all freaked out about it, that guy, in my mind, doesn't make a cavalier joke about, I'll show you my cannon to a server who's, knows what he does for a living.
you got a completely different read off of Nicolas Cage in this movie than I did.
Well, I'm not saying he's like that the entire movie. I'm saying that his moments of that don't contrast well with moments where he's kind of a dickhead.
I only agree with you to the point that you said in the scene where, like, there's a moment of outrage when, like, he sees the black guy get shot in front of him.
Yeah.
But his next line is, like, I think the initial shock is perhaps the raw emotion, but then he just instantly reverts back to, what are you doing shooting this gun? Now it's used. How am I going to sell this now? Because in the scene where he gets, like, the Iraqi kids are getting killed, he's like, hey, Jared Leto, it's not your fucking fight.
Yeah,
like, don't fucking worry about this. This is not our problem. Because he's able to, like, maintain that consistently throughout the entire movie. So when you say he has,
that
like,
is one of the
moral
few
upstanding
consistent
points,
parts.
yeah, because then he's not morally upstanding at all. If he's able to will away and, like, aside from that one outburst in the scene, which he's able to kind of rationalize away with the punchline after, doesn't seem like he has any moral upstanding traits whatsoever, aside from the fact that he cares deeply about his wife.
And his son. There's that one scene where he throws his son's toy gun away, which, is intended to show that he's kind of ashamed.
There you go. It's intended to show, but it's like...
That's the thing, is that it might have been intended... I guess that was the whole point of this whole thing, is like,
it's cheap.
they intend to make him this complex character who has, somewhat of a character turn in the vein of getting better or feeling, morally upstanding.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really play, but, I liked that they tried.
Yeah.
I'm having such a hard time finding concrete good things that I thought worked.
You know what I always like? I like that you always like the reaction your family member has to the movies we watch.
Well, my family is very emotionally, they're very emotionally fragile when it comes to movies. Not my dad, but like,
The accountant.
like my parents watch, sorry, not my parents, my mom and my sister like to watch things that are like true crime stories. And they came into the room when I was watching Zodiac. They saw 5 minutes of Zodiac and they were like, oh, this is too morbid. They saw 5 minutes of people talking at a restaurant and they decided that was too morbid for them. So like, yeah, I love watching these in a public area of my house where people are going to come in and just be like, what? Like my sister left midway through that opening sequence when they, shoot the kid, and my mom didn't like the Zodiac conversation. So it is fun to watch it with stuff with them. But yeah,
it's always the highlight of like, I think listening back to these podcasts when I'm editing them is just like your story about your family having an experience with the movie with you. And I'm always, that is one of the upsides and downsides of living with my family. Is they always have shared space. Sure. Going back to stuff I liked, I don't want to be harsh because I don't think this is like a terrible movie. Like, I think it's a fun movie. It's just not coherent and it's not great. Yeah. It's put together. It's a movie that is like at the very base level. If it was being graded, it would get a pass. Right. It would get a pass, but marks. It's not getting into the honors program. Oh, definitely not. It's not even like B level. It's like, look, we're not going to take away financial aid. You're kind of on probation, but you passed, right? Yeah. You can still get a degree, but that's what I'd put. I think that solid 2.5. Yeah, it's like scale. This is one of those movies where back when I was in college and, we were bored one night and we smoked a little bit of weed, someone was like, oh, hey, this is a fun movie. And then we all watched it together. We had a good time and then we never thought about it again. And now when I've really thought critically about this movie, I don't know that I have very much positive to say. And that's disappointing because I always try and be as positive as possible about the movies we watch. It's like what Greg Turkington would describe as a popcorn movie. Exactly, yes.
6 bags of popcorn for me, and make the giant-sized bags of popcorn.
Well, they are. The ones that we use are already the biggest size of popcorn, so...
Then make them as they are.
Not in the way that he uses it, but just, I guess, in the, whatever movie. Just whatever. Eat your popcorn. Exactly. Forget about it kind of movie. Yeah. So with that in mind, now that I've kind of qualified the fact that I don't have that much to say about it. Yep. What did not work for you in this movie? Unfortunately, all of its misfires were really evident. There's so much lacking in this movie where there had potential. Yeah. That void is disappointing. Yep. To say the least. The fact that it tries so hard at every turn to deliver those like memorable one-liners to the point where nothing is memorable anymore is a huge disappointment, because all those times where those one-liners didn't land, which was like 90% of the time, 70 to 90%, was just like, those were groan-inducing because it tried so hard to like have that pith of its like, ooh, crimey, I'm a cool dude moment maybe, or I'm a crimey, spy-y, I'm detached from the world kind of like tone to it, that it just sounded like, or oh, I got that super duper hard objective look on reality kind of line. It does it in such a poor and fumbly messy way that it makes you groan. Yeah. It's like if someone decided to put every even moderately off-kilter story about a gun runner in a not 100% straightforward situation into a movie, and then they had to create this character as a through line. Yeah. It's like they almost wrote him as like a James Bond almost character, where like those lines are supposed to stick, but they have a lot less dialogue, right?
Yeah.
This was constantly monological or expository or just all talking. Yeah. And so when every single thing that comes out of their mouths is like supposed to be like, oh, like, to quote the Plinkett reviews, I think the most recent one, the Ghostbusters one, it reeks of desperation. You know, where the writer is just trying to make it sound so much cooler than his writing actually is able to permit with the poor script.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And also, I think we should maybe mention, maybe I'll mention this in the stuff that didn't work for me. I want to maybe have a quick little discussion about what makes a voiceover effective, because this, I think you can add to the long list of movies in which the voiceover detracted from the quality.
I think it got the point across in certain places. Like when he talks about the business parts, it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. When he's like, he talks about the AK-47 or the fall of the Soviet Union is a gun runner's wet dream.
Wow, is that Nicolas Cage talking at the other end there?
That was a direct recording. It was not just me really tired from not getting any sleep.
Definitely not.
Those bits were okay. Like, again, this movie had like moments where the things they tried to go for landed.
Yeah.
But the majority of the time it didn't. You're right where this falls on that long list of voiceover didn't work, albeit there were parts that I think were necessary and in fact I appreciated, like those two that I brought up.
Yeah. You were going to say Jared Leto, I think, before I interrupted you.
I was, and I still am. Jared Leto. He sucked. Holy fuck. Me and Paul talked about this before. He didn't have a very good base to really act from. The whole script surrounding his character sucked. But, oh my god, he sucked in this.
And the part that sucks the worst about that is that he's an amazing actor.
Yeah. Nicolas Cage, I think, was really bad in this movie. I think he wanted to get through a lot of his scenes quickly. For instance, there's so many moments where he's on the phone and like he'll talk so fast through the pauses that like there's no possible way they could have responded in the way that he like delivers his lines to. Yeah. It's like, hello, who's this? What? They're coming? Wait, what do you mean? It's like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way all this information could be delivered in time. Yeah. Right? Like,
unless there's like code words that stand for like entire sentences. He's like, what? Who's this? Steve. What's going on? Rabbit hat. Oh shit! That's the code for the like. Oh, come on. Come on.
Basically. But the way he also delivers the line back, which is like half-hearted, what? They're coming? You gotta stall them! Like, the acting also didn't match. None of it matched. It just felt really bad.
Yeah.
So, those moments were pretty poor on Nicolas Cage's parts. I'd say at least 98% of his performances lacked the emotion that I think the scene could have warranted.
Yep. It wasn't very subtle either. It was either we're going hard on the emotion or we're going hard on the being intense or there's no subtlety.
Or he doesn't care. Yeah. The one scene that did stand out though, that I really liked, again, it was carried by Eamon Walker, Andre Baptiste Sr., is when he kills his rival with him. And then Nicolas Cage is like really freaking out and like he's like really sad that like, I can't say no to this because everything you're saying is right. He did try to kill me. He killed my uncle.
Yeah.
Spoiler. And he's like, you can stop this whenever you want. Just say the word. And he gives him like a long time to think about it. And then he pulls the trigger with him with gun in hand. Totally Fury style, which is great.
Yep.
And he goes, stop. Like he whispers it and he just sounds so sad. And his eyes just look so sad.
Yeah.
That was that was the only time like he really pulled it through for me in this movie. But like I said, the rest of it was kind of shit. The Interpol agent...
Ethan Hawke.
Oh, I had his name. Thank you. Ethan Hawke. My God. Was he just terrible?
He's a good actor, too. It's a bummer that they couldn't get great performances out of these actors. Because acting in a movie, there's a lot of facets to a good performance. There's the director, There's the
Yeah.
actor themselves. There's the camera, the shots they choose, and then there's the editor
Yeah.
who has to choose the
Yeah.
arrangement of those shots to cut together a performance that's dynamic. And,
Yeah.
you know, somewhere in that grouping of four, they went wrong with all of their main actors, which is a bummer because they're all decent.
I think I found it. This was directed and written by the same guy,
Ooh.
some dude named Andrew Nicole. So this is definitely a case of
Some people
this
should not do
probably
that.
did have legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then maybe some dudes jumped on because they thought it would be good, and it turned out like maybe they thought they got the rough draft of the script, and when they finally got it, they said, "Uh-oh, whoops."
Yep.
This was the actual final cut.
Wow. Okay.
That,
So
that classic.
an interesting facet of this guy, which is very, very close in theme to what you just mentioned.
Mm,
A lot of this guy's movies that he has both written and directed have gotten reviews for being disjointed in terms of their plot versus what the script has in it. On the other hand, the one movie on his credit list that he wrote but did not direct is like one of the most kind of acclaimed movies of our time. The Truman Show.
which is what?
Yeah.
Damn.
I think it might be we don't want this guy directing shit
Directing.
that he wrote.
Oh man,
Because
that's interesting.
right after this movie, he made that weird movie with Justin Timberlake called In Time, which was notoriously hyped up for its high concept sort of, you know,
yeah,
world building type stuff. And then it came
Yeah.
out and everyone was like, oh, this movie's kind of bad. So,
wow. Oh, too bad. So this is like, I knew for a reason this movie definitely had the what could have been sheen to it, if you will. I
yeah,
guess
dude, I would love to see this movie tackled by a better director. Because,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
there's a lot of interesting shit in the script. It's like the greatest hits of how being a gun runner could go wrong.
Yeah, there were so many really cool. We both talked about this and the things that we liked, or rather, the things that we wanted to like.
Yeah, it's like the
portion
concepts.
of this. Yeah,
None of it was the execution. It was all the concepts.
right. This could use a solid remake, and then you could really kind of dig in and get the feel and the flavor for the rise and fall and the moral choice and the effect it has on the family and all this other shit like that they tried to do, the effect that this has on Africa and the kids. Like, man, this has got to be an Ocean's 11. Maybe he's
Dude,
like the
right?
Ocean's 11 writer of our time.
Right?
Yeah.
Dude, I would love to see
Yeah.
In Time remade with better, you know, directing and stuff like that. I would love to see this made with better everything. Like,
Yeah.
because this is such a good topic to be exploring. Like,
Yeah, they even try to bring in the blood diamonds too, as like, this is conflict diamond shit. This is being paid in cocaine. You know, like there were a lot of, you know, I mean, when you bring up blood diamonds, already you should get some sort of emotional response out of it. But it just failed in such a spectacular way.
yeah,
where there's a moment when the Liberian Andre Baptiste Sr. and Andre Baptiste Jr. visit Nicolas Cage at his home, and he's like, "What the fuck are you guys doing here? This place is like surrounded by Interpol. Like, you cannot be here." He's like, "We can't get a hold of you, you asshole, and we're in town, so
yeah,
we need guns. By the way, we know you're kind of out," and they don't even threaten him, right?
yeah.
But they're like, and because we know the circumstances right now are kind of fucked up for both of us, if you can get it to us, and then he pulls out a humongous diamond thing. We have no concept of value for the diamond either,
Yeah.
because we just see them like throw rocks around, and really, when he pulls out the big one, which doesn't even appear that altogether that big, really, it might be like a little bit bigger than average. We're supposed to feel like, oh, he was tempted back because the money was just so good. That is a big misfire, and that doesn't even get across the point of like, you know, blood diamonds are bad for the fucking, you know, people it exploits.
Yeah.
Big misfire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry for that rant. That was a little bit longer than I intended. aside from the acting, I think the music was offensive at times. I didn't quite enjoy.
Yeah.
The best things in life are free, burr, 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 but you could give up to the birds and bees, or whatever the fuck that horrible remix was.
Yeah.
Visual tropes were annoying at times.
For me, also, the color in this was a little bit too saturated a lot of the time.
Yeah, I had that problem too. The only time I liked, you know what, it made cold Soviet Ukraine feel even better because it just wasn't so saturated.
Yeah.
Normally I am a fan of like certain movies where I say, oh, it's so bright and colorful, but this just felt, like you said, oversaturated.
Yep.
Where it just was like, this is too bright, this is too orange. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
it was so saturated that some colors that we know from true life felt wrong or
Weird.
cartoony.
Yeah,
Like, for example, when the bullet actually goes into the African kid's head in the very beginning, like the bullet,
Yeah.
the color in that scene is so saturated that the bullet looks orange. And if you know, if you've been to a shooting range, if you loaded one of those into your weapon, you know that's not even close to what it actually looks like. And in a lot of ways, in a lot of, other movies, that can serve to heighten a scene or heighten emotion or something like that. But in this, a lot of times it was just distracting. It felt.
it was just there.
Yeah.
He just wanted it.
Yeah.
I think he did, because if he directed it, that's just something he likes. You know what I mean?
I've got to think so. Yeah.
Yeah. What studio did this? Was this Warner Brothers? Let's check on that, because I know. Let me see.
Lionsgate distributed it, but the production company was Ascendant Pictures and Saturn Films.
Yeah, no idea.
Oh, Saturn Films is Nicolas Cage's company. I would assume one of those other production companies is a subsidiary of a major studio, because this got wide distribution.
Yeah, because I'm trying to be a little bit more lenient on this Andrew Nicole guy,
Sure.
because maybe that wasn't his fault. Maybe that was some studio meddling. But I mean, at the end of the day, man, it's just so easy to pile this on this guy. He wrote it. He directed it.
Yep.
I mean, at this point, just stick it on. Why not? It's his fault. Fuck him.
Yep.
I guess that's it. I mean, that's all I'll go into. Paul, what about you? What didn't work for you in this movie?
I don't think it was technically bad. I just feel like, whereas what we're about to be talking about, Zodiac, like, has a technicality to it that totally lends itself to the story. This movie just felt like, okay, so for example, sometimes when we're doing the podcast, if I don't feel like I know a movie well enough, I'll just have it playing on silent in the background while we're talking. And I have Lord of War playing in the background right now while we're talking. And like,
Really?
I'm looking at the scene where he comes home after Ethan Hawke just interviewed his wife, and his wife is sitting there still in this
Yeah, this was a
gorgeous
boring
blue
scene.
light.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, how long has she been sitting there in that exact position waiting for him? It just so happens to be in the nude. And then he goes to sit down and like vent to her, and there's like, oh, this like unsourced other gorgeous, beautiful blue light. It's like, dude, you just wanted to make this look cool. It doesn't like lend itself to the story at all.
No,
And there's
'cause
like,
they already had too much boring dialogue throughout.
yeah, and there's like 7 different shots for this scene, and they needed
Yeah.
maybe 2 of them to make it dramatically effective. It's like stuff like that where, I don't know.
Yeah.
I like movies where everything you do as a movie maker can be rationalized. Or if it's not a movie you need to take super seriously, make it dynamic for the sake of making it fun. But like, this is just like,
Yeah. It's out of place.
yeah,
Totally.
it's, I don't know.
It would feel better in that movie that we watched, where the one we saw before John Wick, about the model, the fashion model.
Oh,
girl.
the Neon Demon.
It would be a good Neon Demon.
Exactly,
scene,
yeah.
'cause
And it's like, for
very
all the
stylistic.
complaints I had about Neon Demon, its visuals totally lent themselves to the weird tone they were trying to come up with. This one, it's like,
it's so artsy, it doesn't fit.
yeah, it's like a little bit try-hardy.
It's try hard, dude.
Yes.
It's definitely try hard because even like to try to say it's like at a Neon Demon level is such an overstatement because it's not quite as good as a Neon Demon scene would have been.
Yeah.
But it's just so out of place in this one. If you're putting it on that scale, it definitely falls on the Neon Demon side.
Yeah.
Rather. Yeah.
So there's
I agree with you
that.
there.
Something about the whole of this movie just did not work for me. And this is me reiterating that I had a very fun time every time I watched this movie. But it's like,
Yeah.
it just does not stand up to base level critical analysis. I don't think the visuals match the intended tone. I don't think the tone that we get as an audience matches what was written to be the tone because of the missteps in acting and shot choice and stuff like that. I don't think a lot of the potential lessons about gun running or, you know, the negative impact that industries like this have on the world
yeah, definitely.
were effectively put forth.
Yeah.
I especially don't think the characters were dynamic enough. Like when Nicolas Cage goes from I'm too shocked to be a part of this anymore to, oh, the diamond is so pretty, I'll just do this again. It's like, I understand there's a possibility that in real life that exact same arc happened in someone's career, but it does not work well within the established tropes of movie character writing, which seem to suggest you want to have a character who either needs to change or wants to change, and he flip-flops too much for that.
Yeah.
I don't know. And that goes back to what I said before, where it's like, sometimes he'll be morally outraged, other times he's cavalier about it. I don't know. So, yeah, I'll stop there.
I think that touches on a very fundamental problem of this movie, where we both now have kind of talked about it. There's nothing of value in this movie, both conceptually, but also just in the sake of, like, you said the diamond is pretty, the people are, whatever, expendable, the guns are in mass quantity, the family is also, like, very much whatever, because you just spend no time with them. Nothing in this movie has value.
And very few things have stakes.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. We don't know. His pursuit is money, right? He says he doesn't like to trade in oil and like those other like ways to exploit third world countries because the margins are too low because everyone's like, you know, saturated the market basically.
Yeah.
We get no concept of like the money in that or his like quality of life money. Like what is his break even point even just to like sustain his way of life, right?
Yeah.
None of it actually gets through. We have no attachment and no frame of reference for literally anything, be it emotional investment to characters, places, events, things, nothing. It flatlines on all fronts.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry I cut you off there, but I just wanted to bring
No,
up the
I
value.
was done anyways, so I think that's a great cherry on top of what we kind of were mentioning. So I guess with that, I think maybe it's time to go to Zodiac.
But wait, would you recommend this movie, Paul?
I would. I mean, I don't critically like it in any way, shape, or form, but I think it's, if you're just watching movies with your friends, you ate a little pop brownie and you have some popcorn, it's a fun movie, but, you know, it's not to be taken seriously or critically analyzed.
Yeah.
What about you?
I am in the same odd boat you are. I can't recommend this critically in the slightest, but if it's on, yeah, if it's on TV, fucking, why not? Just keep it on. I mean, like, unless there's something better on TV, just keep it on. It's a popcorn movie. In that way, I'd recommend it. If it's at the $2 theater, I mean, maybe, if you're bored. Like, yeah. Seriously. There's worse ways to spend $2.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so weird. This is one of the most coherently negative reviews we've had about a podcast, and yet we both would recommend it.
Yeah, I think that means we're maybe just getting better about paying attention.
Or maybe it's just this movie's an enigma.
Yeah, it could be. It could be this is just a weird, enigmatic, treasure of cinema history that's going to need to be remade way better in the future.
Yeah.
Where you at,
time
Steven
will tell.
Soderbergh? This can be your next remake.
Let's go.
Follow up Logan Lucky with something strong, buddy.
Poor Logan.
All right.
He was too young.
He was too young.
Yeah.
He's only, 200 years old when he...
Yeah.
At any rate, Zodiac, huh?
Yeah.
Anson, tell us about a Zodiac.
Zodiac, or Big Z, as the rappers call him, is a movie directed by Paul's all-time favorite director, David Fincher, written by
baby.
James Vanderbilt and Robert Graysmith. Oh, wow. That's a name I recognize from the movie.
Hey!
Starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Robert Downey Jr., Mark Ruffalo, Anthony Edwards,
Chloe Sevigny, and John Carroll Lynch. Oh, yeah.
As well as a truly amazing supporting cast.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
Are they famous by name, or are they just did they just happen to do an excellent job in this movie?
Well, I think maybe there's a couple names you could look at and be like, oh, yeah, I'd recognize this guy from a couple other things. But I think mostly it's just the execution is so great that...
Yeah.
And obviously Fincher's famous for doing 30, 40 takes where he's like, oh, this person's wrong in this one's wrong. Really nitpicking his actors. So
yeah,
there's that as well.
Well, suffice it to say then, with an excellent cast, Zodiac focuses on the true story of the events and investigations surrounding the Zodiac Killer. For those of you who are uninitiated, the Zodiac Killer was a serial killer in the San Francisco, kind of California Bay Area through the 1960s and 70s. He was quite a terrifying figure, as he was probably one of America's most famous homegrown terrorists. Yeah, I'd say that. Terrorists and mass murderers. And it kind of follows the lives of a few key players in this investigation and the kind of deterioration of their lives as a result of their involvement with the Zodiac killings. Jake Gyllenhaal plays Robert Graysmith, again, that writer, who worked for the San Francisco Chronicle, with Robert Downey Jr., who plays Paul Avery, another reporter. The inspectors from all the different districts, the most notable star being Mark Ruffalo, and the victims and families of these characters and murder victims. So, that's the plot, I guess, in a very stunted way.
I would certainly say so.
Paul, now, what worked for you in Zodiac?
Well, one of the big things is, and this is kind of one of my favorite things about some of my favorite historical movies, if I know the end result of a story, if I know how things are going to turn out, how do you make me feel the stakes? For example, one of my favorite movies is Apollo 13, and we all know what happened on Apollo 13.
Mm-hmm.
But I cry every time I watch that movie. If I need to cry, I will just go watch Apollo 13 because it's so masterfully done that you can feel the stakes every time you watch it without having to, I don't know. I guess I would say despite knowing the outcome. So this one, the thing that really baffles me is that I feel the investment of the characters in the case every time I watch it. And I feel certain characters besides Robert Graysmith losing interest or trying to move on with their lives. And I relate to that at the same time as I relate to the kind of dead on, keep trudging forward attitude of Jake Gyllenhaal's character. The writing is such that we're not glorifying the Zodiac or making a monument out of him in the way that a lot of serial killer movies do with their killers. Mm-hmm. But we're also maintaining a sense of intrigue about him and his crimes and his credo or whatever it might be. And I think this is kind of a nice contrast to Fincher's movie Seven in that way, because Seven is almost entirely through the eyes of these detectives about this serial killer who we're meant to be fascinated by because he's a crazy person. with this one, it's like we're fascinated by this guy, but we're almost more fascinated by Jake Gyllenhaal because he literally loses everything in his life as a result of this personal investigation, like this non-official investigation he's on. He loses his marriage. He loses his job.
Did he lose his marriage?
Well, Chloe took the kids and they fucked off down the road because they didn't want to be around him anymore.
That's true, but I don't know if that...
It was directly a result of his spending too much time on the case.
That's true. I just don't know if it got to the divorce point, but I agree. That was as a direct
Well, I know
result to
there
the
was that
case.
scene where she has the papers that she sent him and he obviously never got the mail or signed them or anything. So I don't know if they ever actually got divorced, but at any rate...
I thought those were divorce papers too, but when he looks at the thing, I thought it was like case notes. It was like he pulled open like a police file, if I'm not mistaken.
Huh. Maybe
let
I
me
missed
open
that.
that scene. Hold on, let me pull it up.
Yeah.
Apparently there are a bunch of different versions of this movie. So
really?
there's a bunch of different cuts.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because I was rewatching this with Pat on the other end of the internet, and yeah, we had different cuts and scenes were occurring in different orders. So, I don't know. Okay, I'm pulling up the scene. Okay, throws him envelope. Jake Gyllenhaal looks at envelope. She walks out. She looks back. He goes to envelope, crawls over, opens it, and it is the driver's license of our guy. So,
Oh,
it was
that's
not
right.
divorce
Shit.
papers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. But I know she does leave and stuff with the kid and,
Yeah.
you know, it definitely like ruins his marriage for sure.
Definitely.
So he like loses everything. So I think what I'm getting at with this kind of phrase that I've been dancing around the last couple minutes is the writing is really solid, but what the writing can't account for that David Fincher and his directing style really add to this movie is the fucking terrifyingly dark tone of this movie.
Yeah.
Like, by the time we
Definitely.
see Jake Gyllenhaal in that guy's basement, who he thinks could potentially be the Zodiac,
Yeah.
we still don't know at the end of the movie who the Zodiac is de facto. And that scene where he's in that guy's basement, who at the end seems not to be even a remotely clear suspect, I mean, that scene is terrifying.
Yeah. That was great.
Like, I think the marriage of this kind of classic David Fincher omniscient camera that's not, you know, doesn't ever appear as if it's being operated by a human being, and the music and the, you know, meticulousness with which the case files were followed, it just makes this a really fascinating movie. So another thing I liked that is this is more objective, not necessarily something I can really comment on, is if you watch that 30-minute making of featurette that I sent you, they worked extremely closely with everyone who is alive that was on this case to get as much authenticity out of each murder scene, each scene that involves investigation, each scene that involves conjecture as possible.
Mm-hmm.
They literally moved around trees in a location where a murder took place so that they could film in the exact same location as the murder, and it would have the same exact landmarks that were there when the murder happened, despite some trees being knocked down and brush being cleared and stuff like that. The people who were involved in the real case were so reluctant to be a part of this movie that they said, unless great pain is shown, you know, not to glorify the serial killer, to show the investigative process and the finding and losing of leads, that they wouldn't be involved. And they were still involved. You know, I like when people take great pains like that to make something feel authentic. And with this, they made it feel authentic, but they also gave you a sense of like the hopelessness of ever figuring this out in a way that's provable in a court of law. I like just about everything about this movie. Music, the cinematography, the acting. And another quick, just little piece of trivia that I think is cool that, you know, showcases the effort that goes into a David Fincher movie. You know that opening scene where the camera is pointing out the car window and it's just going through that city street and there's fireworks going off everywhere.
Yeah.
So they shot that a variety of times, a variety of ways, on a variety of car-mounted rigs. They tried mounting it to the inside of the car where the driver would sit and then have someone drive over it. They tried mounting it on the passenger seat with the same frame size. They tried mounting it on the outside of the other side of the car, pointing through the car. But every time they did that, there was too much camera shake. And so they literally just laid out like 3 or 4 blocks worth of speed rail, put the camera on a speed rail dolly, and just pushed it that entire way. Just so they could have that smooth car ride without any bumps or anything.
Is that very expensive just to lay down the track and pick it back up?
It's not expensive, but it's like, it's the most painstaking. Like when you're on set and someone has a dolly, they'll tend to want to use that dolly a lot because if you're on like a low budget set, you want to use the most expensive thing you have as much as possible because you want to get your money's worth. If you're on a Hollywood set, you can do whatever you want because you have days and days and days and days to do it a lot of the time. And when I've been on low budget sets and we've had a dolly with only like 50 feet of track, let's say, putting down that 50 feet of track and adjusting it for bumps and getting little like wedges in there so that it's even the whole time and, you know, all that stuff. That's a painstakingly long, annoying process sometimes. And so the fact that he did that just to get this one shot that they had already gotten different variations of through virtue of the camera rigs, that speaks to a meticulous dedication to craft that I feel like not a lot of modern directors really showcase. I don't know. It feels special to me when I hear about stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It makes me feel good because I like attention to movie detail because it's so hard to pay attention to all the details at once. Mm-hmm. You know? So I guess that's me sucking this movie's dick. What worked for you in this movie?
I will also jump off on that point. The attention to detail in this movie was really, really spectacular. The way you feel like you're back in the 60s or the 70s, what with the costume design and the little things that they choose to put in the shots were like ashtrays on the table or like kind of like the color of the desks or the books kind of that people have lying around, the typewriters, the furniture that the people have. It's great. This is just a pleasant movie to view, albeit like the subject matter is a little bit grotesque at times. Too grotesque for your sister and mom. It's just such a pleasant movie to watch. There are certain movies that I can point out that like are just a joy for me to watch. Grand Budapest Hotel is just like a joy to just sit and watch and look at. The Third Man, which we just watched, is just like a joy to kind of just watch as like the camera just kind of like just takes you around. This movie, I'd put that up there on that like top tier list of like just a really nice movie to look at and watch. It's just such a relaxing, albeit the mood is very tense, but it's like I can just sit and like have eye candy the whole time, and there's nothing spectacular going on. It just
isn't it funny how this movie can have eye candy during moments of nothingness?
Of them just like
totally
talking
works
on the table. Yeah,
it totally works with this movie. And then fucking Lord of War, you're like, why is she bathed in this gorgeous blue light for no fucking reason at all?
It's like just
like, did this guy's house get designed by a gaffer?
Yeah, a gaffer. Like just the little doodads, just the solid facial expressions, the perfect lighting. I don't know. It's like saying all the flavors that go in. I always use cooking fucking metaphors, huh? All the fucking flavors that go into pho. You know, it's hard to point them all out individually, but like they create this like beautiful medley that you can't tell which one ingredient really typified it for you for it being a great bowl. You just know that this is just a fantastic bowl of pho in front of you that you just want to drink forever. The same thing can go with this movie, and it's nothing spectacular. Again, there's no huge action scenes or great set pieces, things on fire. It's just regular shit, and it's just so nice to look at.
That's another testament to David Fincher's quality. It's like, how much of this movie is a manic dude walking around having ordinary conversations with people?
Yeah.
75% of this movie is that. And it's all exciting.
Yeah.
And it's all beautiful. And it's all workable within the concept of the Zodiac investigation. It's
elegant.
I should stop sucking this movie.
Bloody elegant. No, I'm sucking it right along with you. I like the music choice in this a lot. The music really elevated the scenes where they were in. It also helped, with the time period thing too. The way that they are able to express the passage of time was quite interesting too. Or it didn't feel cheesy with like the kind of like typed letter on the bottom thing where it's just like the date or whatever.
Yeah. There's a lot of, and they did it differently some of the times.
Yeah.
Like they had the construction of that big tower in San Francisco.
That was cool.
Then in another time they had like a long black screen to kind of be like,
here's a lot of time passing.
Yeah. And then after the black screen, it pops up very briefly, like 6 years later, whatever it is.
The opening scene where the Zodiac Killer is like, by the way, I killed them last year. Goodbye. That's not going to come up at all in my audio. That was way too soft. This movie is just so immersive. What I was getting at with the music was this movie is just so immersive that like when you see Jake Gyllenhaal running in the rain and it is just fucking pouring. I know California rains can get just bloody awful sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you really feel the rain. You feel like it's pouring. Like you're in the rain with them somehow.
Yeah. Just
somehow. You're dry, you're in your bed watching this movie, but at the same time you get that wet feeling, you get in a storm, And another testament, man. Like, this movie's just so great at getting you to invest in the characters, the time period, all the things that are happening. Just the horror of the Zodiac Killer killing these really, what we would consider today as probably naive Americans, when really they are just good-willed, neighborly folk, right?
Yeah.
Where
it is a public park.
Yeah, exactly. We are good-looking kids or whatever. He's just like, brushing off.
He's staring at us. Yeah, we are very good-looking.
Yeah, just kind of making a joke about it. Yeah. The dude who's like, let me help you with your tire. I see it's coming a little loose. The fact that someone would be like, okay. Whereas today we consider that a horror trope, where back then it is just so believable that sense of community was so real that you would not think to suspect someone of just straight up wanting to murder you, stab you to death, or throw your baby out of the car window. My fucking God. When you see that level of violence paired with like what is I consider like a very Charlie Brownie kind of life and community, it makes it that much more horrifying, which makes that movie just so much more interesting to watch and be a part of. You mentioned earlier, too, that you knew the true life stuff about the Zodiac. I actually knew, outside of just knowing the name of the Zodiac and knowing that it was never solved and like there were theories and whatever, I had no basis about like the Zodiac. So seeing this movie for the first, and again for the second time, but definitely for the first time, was just like so captivating. I was like, whoa, what is going on? Whoa, like, he probably did say something like this. Whoa, anagrams, what the fuck? And just like weird shit, like, where this isn't out of the realm of possibility, because I think all this was based on fact. And then you come to realize at the end when you're doing your research, like, wow, this was all fucking just crazy shit
like
that happened.
Exactly what happened, yeah.
Yeah, like.
Which is like, there's one thing, one of my favorite parts of Seven is how like meticulously disgusting and kind of tailored to the victim the crimes are.
Yeah.
And you think about that and you're like, oh, well, that's really fucked up. But the likelihood that someone could accomplish all of this at once, be that good at multitasking, is like pretty unlikely, especially someone who is singular minded that they're going to be killing people. Mm-hmm. But like in this, it's like, oh, literally everything that you see in here, except for the exact wording of conversations, is exactly what happened.
Yeah. And
like, that's so crazy to think about, because you don't think of things like that being realistic to accomplish. But I guess in the late 60s and 70s, technology was at a point where it was kind of the perfect time for a killer like that.
Right. Where I bring up like Wes Anderson movies a lot as like making the ordinary fantastic. Mm-hmm. To that sense of like wonder you get from his movies.
Yes.
This movie had the same effect on me, but I knew it was real, which made it so much more like, it was like a mixture I'd say, but it was definitely that like that wonder fancifulness that you get of like, this is like reality made gorgeous, but no, this is actually real life. This is like a romantic-y kind of like odd story, but no, wait, this shit actually happened. That adds such another level of like interest or intrigue into the movie that this was a very unique movie experience for me to have. I felt like a child almost. What's going to happen next? You know, like, it's hard to describe, but it wasn't so unreal like a Wes Anderson movie. But it was like, I don't know, learning that there are holidays like Halloween and Christmas and then thinking that they're real, right? Because to a kid, they are real. This movie actually was about real events, right? So I don't know. It's a weird way of putting it, but yeah, I had a really great emotional experience with this movie, and just like the awe, I guess, it inspired in me, and the excitement I had following the progression of the case, and even the murders, I should say. So again, for all the performances, I fucking love, and I must say, like, the ordinariness that the cops kind of bring to the movie without coming off as like they're not acting well or they're just not good actors is just such a testament, because like they add so much depth to the movie as like they're exploring the, you know, they're working together.
Yep.
When that fat head of whatever detective from that one district is talking to Jake Gyllenhaal, and he's like, and David Toschi sent you? It's like, yes, he sent me. Why? That very real why, and the very what the fuck kind of like tone and look on his face is just so brilliant, right? And he's just like, he just feels like a regular dude. The other head of the Trejo province or district, he had a very real feel to him too, that just, oh man, I just love it.
The
just
balding guy?
Yeah, the balding detective.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah, they're great.
And you can, another thing is like with that realness, you can also feel these characters' very real exasperation with this guy who's so enthusiastic after they've exhausted every lead. It's like, this guy essentially is the one link between your police offices, all of which have different information, all of which have different case files, all of which have different interviews.
Yeah.
And
it's like a
you guys are done with it.
Respect. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, gosh, I appreciate that you're trying to help, bud, but like, we're done with this shit. Like, go home.
Exactly. That was great. And then the other detective who walks from San Fran, Mark Ruffalo's sidekick.
Oh, yeah.
He had a great performance. Like, he just seemed like exasperated cop who's like a very good-natured guy. Like, we're trying the best we can, ma'am. Like, when he's on the phone and stuff.
Yeah.
His kind of like understated whatever quips felt very real and punchy, even though they weren't punchy, right? The cute thing they had with him, like keeping animal crackers in the car for Mark Ruffalo.
For Mark Ruffalo.
It was just great shit.
Yeah.
I just love seeing the cops in this movie. They're so memorable, and they're not even trying to be Sherlock Holmes and fucking Watson over here. They're not trying to be anything special. They're special in how normal they come off, which I just, to me, is just mind-blowing.
Yep. They're very human, but they're also very round characters.
Yeah.
You can tell their wants and what they are trying to get out of life without being hit over the head by it. And it's in little details that don't get purposefully brought to the forefront for no reason.
Yeah, and in that way, because their scenes were so chosen, or I guess specific, I think, while, you know, the stars are Jake Gyllenhaal and Robert Downey Jr. and Chloe Sevigny, or whatever, Chloe Sevigny, whatever, I feel like the better performance actually came from the side characters, because they're them being them, but I was more immersed. It was more believable seeing the other guys doing their stuff than seeing the stars putting on the glitz and glam. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I guess that really stood out for me. That really worked for me. So, yeah. I love the tension. This movie is just a master class in how how to take what could be a really tropey subject, actually, yeah, for having like a tropey genre, and doing it right while still hitting the notes it might necessarily need for the narrative, but never feeling overbearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember recognizing, like, there was the Sherlock moment of Mark Ruffalo being like, he's breaking the pattern, when they both realize that together, or whatever, right? But, like, it doesn't ever come back and swing around and say, oh, man, they had so much of this. It just needed it for a moment. It needed it for a scene, and it's gone.
Yep.
Excellent use of restraint in this movie. Fucking beautiful.
There's a lot of detective shows and detective movies where it's like every revelation about the bad guy or everything about the villain has to be this big dramatic thing.
True Detectives.
You think so?
Uh-huh. In hindsight, compared to this, 100%.
Interesting. I'll have to revisit that with that in mind. But yeah, and this just doesn't have that, which is just so nice.
Very refreshing.
Yeah.
Paul, was there anything that didn't work for you in this movie that we both can agree that we're sucking the dick of?
Yeah, that's I am sucking its dick, and I'm not proud of that, because I like to think usually I have both positive and negative things to say about most movies we watch. With regard to stuff that didn't work, this is so stupid. I can't think of anything at all. I'm such an asshole. Oh my God. This is like if we were ever to watch a Paul Thomas Anderson movie again for this podcast, I would just be like, nope, nothing didn't work. Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know. I can't really think of anything at the moment that didn't work for me. I'm trying to think of even just a single category of movie making in which this was not a great movie.
Can you think of a single moment, maybe?
I'm feeling real stupid, man. I can't think of anything that I did not think was extremely effective about this movie. Yeah, I mean, if you were being really nitpicky, I could see someone complaining about the length. But then again, when I am like thinking of my own personal taste in movies, I don't really like long movies. But this movie takes place over the course of 1969 through like 1991.
Yeah, seriously.
It deserves to be long-winded and make you feel exhausted, and like everything that I'm thinking of that I could potentially complain about, I have a rationale for when I think even on a base level about it.
Yeah, I mean,
and
the
that's
problem
so,
with,
I am sucking Fincher's dick here, but like, this is a good movie, man.
the problem with movie length is that you might feel tired during the movie, or like just done with it after a while, or you need to walk away from it. For
and
me,
I've watched plenty of movies that are shorter than this that I felt like that about, and I didn't feel like that about this one.
Same, and that's what I was gonna say. So
yeah,
the length,
like
is
I've
an
watched
invalid
90-minute
argument.
movies. Yeah, exactly. I've watched 90-minute movies where I'm like, okay, 45 minutes in, this should be fucking over.
Yeah.
And I watched this and I'm like captivated the whole time.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't think I have anything that didn't work for me about this movie.
Oh, nice. Okay.
What about you? What do you have anything? I'm
Just two
praying that you
things.
have something.
Just two things. Just two things.
Okay.
There were a couple continuity issues in this movie.
Okay.
After watching, like you said, the documentary thingies that you recommended me to see about the making of the movie.
Yep.
I get that David Fincher shoots like 100 scenes sometimes. There were moments when like Jake Gyllenhaal was like, this is normally where it happens, where I really notice it. He's holding a newspaper, and like in the next cut, he's holding it wrong. Or,
oh, fuck.
And then they cut back, and it might be right again, or it might be even weirder than that. You go, what?
Yeah.
By the way they sound, it's all very cohesive.
Sure.
If you would just listen to it, it's the same conversation. But when you see it so visibly, my eyes are drawn to what he's holding. It kind of fucks it, because you say, oh, that's a continuity error. Where I wish
Interesting.
that had not stood out to me. That's a very big nitpick now, because like that's not
that's
a
good,
deterrent.
though. It's good that you were able to find something, because I fucking feel like an asshole for not finding anything.
I'm just uber critical though. And
sure.
The last thing would be, while I liked Mark Ruffalo, his character, David Toschi, I think I was getting a little tired of Mark Ruffalo in this movie. I don't think he brought anything special to the character. Because, I don't know him from too much. I know him from The Wrestler and the fucking Avengers movies, right? Like where he's the Hulk. The Wrestler, wasn't that the one with the Steve Carell?
Oh,
no, Foxcatcher.
Sorry, Foxcatcher. Yeah.
My bad. Ha. The Wrestler, aka the Foxcatcher. Sorry, the Foxcatcher. Yeah, way off there. I only know him from like Foxcatcher and like the Avengers movies, really. And he is just so good in the Foxcatcher, and he just seems like probably what I imagine himself to be in this movie.
Sure. That
I feel like that's a bit of a blemish. But then again, I don't know the rest of his filmography, really.
He's pretty well regarded in the acting world. And I
think
know
he's probably a really nice dude,
Yeah, surely. And I know that last night when I sent you that making of featurette, I inevitably after that said like, oh, I'm going to go to bed. And then I went on like a rampage watching making of after making of after making of. And I saw this one where apparently he went and lived with Dave Toschi for like 4 days.
Right.
And was like super into the guy's personality and like his style of dress. And a lot of people on the set, I think Fincher being one of them, was like, it's kind of uncanny because we weren't really going for like exact copies of any of these characters. And he was just so much like his character, which I thought that was an interesting.
Yeah, that's weird.
Side.
That's so funny because I remember seeing that in, I think one of the documentaries you recommended me to watch too. But maybe, I don't know. What I really love the actors in this movie for is their ability to become chameleons.
Yeah.
John Carroll Lynch plays an excellent, assuming as the Zodiac Killer. Again, nothing confirmed, but like it's heavily hinted at that he's probably the guy.
But every indication seems to point that direction.
He is a great chameleon in this movie. All the other dudes who I said before are great chameleons. But Mark Ruffalo, for some reason, even more so than Robert Downey Jr., I think he suffers from it too, but less so, than Mark Ruffalo somehow can't blend into this world. I know that's really weird to say because all the documentary people are saying otherwise, like, oh my god, he learned his mannerisms or kind of the feelings he was learning at the time. I didn't get that, though. I didn't see that. I just thought he was being himself. Yeah. So
interesting.
I don't know, man. Can you kind of shed some light on me for that? Do you know if Mark Ruffalo was just more Mark Ruffalo in this? Because I definitely got the sense
I will say that when I've watched his movies, there are certain things that it seems like he always... And I couldn't point to any specific one of these things. That's a little bit depressing for me. But it seems like in every movie, there are things that he has in every character because he can't get rid of that part of him.
Yeah.
Like,
I think
if
it's
you
down
watch
to
an
the
interview
way
with
he
him,
expresses himself.
Yeah.
His voice.
Yeah. If you watch interviews with him and then go back and watch, like, I don't know, any number of movies, Shutter Island, The Avengers, fucking Foxcatcher,
Eternal
Spotlight,
Sunshine of the
even.
Spotless Mind. We watched that, and he was in that too.
Yeah, okay, I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
He's in like a lot of movies, and there are some through lines, so I can see what you're talking about. Like, there are a lot of through lines with all of his acting, but I couldn't point to any of them. It's just one of those things where I see Mark Ruffalo or I hear him, and I'm like, yeah, that seems about right for him, you know? But like any actor, you know, he has moments of brilliance and moments that have stood out and stuff like that, so.
I think, like, Robert Downey Jr., he was only focused for, like, maybe a quarter of the movie.
Yeah.
And that was the perfect amount of sprinkling of Robert Downey Jr., because then it would have been too much.
The movie industry has a nice little history, and we've watched a couple of movies like this for this podcast, of putting Robert Downey Jr. in roles that he would be perfect in because his personality is like very quippy and over talking.
He's a quick dude.
Yeah. He's like a quick, relatively sharp dude, and almost all of his characters embody that. And this character, you know, is second to none when it comes to that
Yeah.
in this movie.
And that's what that character should have.
Yeah.
A news reporter, a motherfucking, like, yeah.
Like an
You expect
alcoholic personality of a news reporter.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal, I think there might have been a little bit too much Gyllenhaal. Not the character who he played, but like, because this is what I was getting at. With Mark Ruffalo and Jake Gyllenhaal, when they spend so much time with these specific actors for so long, they're through, as you said, through puts or through lines are magnified because he spends so
Sure.
much time with them. And I hate to have this be like a this didn't work for me thing, but it was just something that was noticeable.
Sure.
Where,
Yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense.
they didn't embody a character for me. I think some people
Speaking
say,
of which, for next episode, I have a Jake Gyllenhaal movie where he very drastically breaks from himself in a way that he has not very often.
are we talking about the same one where he's the reporter, the camera guy?
Yes.
I love that movie. We watched that, no?
No, not for this.
Oh, okay. But
I just want to critically analyze it. But anyways,
yeah.
so go on.
I think that's about it. I just want to say, you get a lot of Ruffalo and a lot of Gyllenhaal, but that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's just noticeable.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, with that in mind, Mr. Paul, would you recommend this movie whose dick we suck forever and never and ever?
Yeah, I would recommend this one. I have recommended it. Will continue to do so.
Yeah.
And I'll suck David Fincher's cinematic dick any day.
Yeah.
And I will feel no shame about it.
I will also recommend this movie. I don't know about the dick sucking part, but I'm looking at the score on the IMDb. It's 7.7. Man,
Wow.
Why? This is such a good movie.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a solid score.
Yeah, but I maybe people just don't appreciate all of David's wonderful work.
To not be
Dave,
above 8.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, man. You keep doing what you do, man. People will look back at your collection of works and marvel.
Oh yeah. Definitely one of the best directors around.
Sure.
Well, with that, we will talk to you next time, folks. I've been Paul Morgan.
And it's your boy, Anson Chan, signing out. Later, guys.
Sayonara.